Hello, I'm back sooner than I thought I would be. I did say that these videos were things that I thought were important to share, but also things that I would be currently working on. So today I'd like to talk about something that I think applies both in your personal life and in your work life, which is kind of the goal of these things. They're soft skills and emotional, but they apply in both places because we deal with this type of stuff in both places. And today I want to talk about how to regulate your emotions and kind of stay in tune with what's true. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody should bottle things up or not express themselves or, be positive to the point of toxicity. But I do think that it's very easy to get dysregulated. We all have different histories and pasts that we bring into each situation, and showing up as our best self can be really difficult when we are dysregulated. So to make better decisions, regulating your emotions and kind of staying in tune with your body are important pieces to making that happen. And once again, I'm just going to remind you, I am not great at doing this myself. I am working on it. And in thus working on it, I'm learning a lot of really great things and I want to share them. So the very first thing I want you to think about is the next time you go through any kind of situation where you are either experiencing conflict or you're feeling triggered or trapped or whatever the case may be, I want you to notice how you feel. And I don't mean just your emotions. I mean, those are important, but how your body feels. Does your heart rate quicken? Do you change your demeanor or your posture? Does your rate of speech change? What ways are you both physiologically and mentally noticing you get heightened? And these are important things because sometimes we tend to react without even realizing. And the precursor to all of that is your physiological response can actually indicate before your mouth starts going off. And it can be a really good time to go, wait a second, pause. There might be something we need to do here in terms of getting ourselves to a good place before we address this thing. So how does it feel? Like I said, and when you're feeling the emotions come up, what emotions are coming up? Because the next key part is you have to figure out what triggers you and what somebody might say. Maybe it's a word. I'll give you an example. For me, if somebody calls me stupid or implies that I'm stupid, it's incredibly triggering for me. There are some people that I have some safety with, so that when they are sarcastic with me, we're good and it doesn't do that. But when I meet somebody new and that happens, or when I have somebody that maybe I don't have as much trust with at the moment and that happens, it can be very triggering for me. And it will automatically send me into a mindset of this person thinks you're stupid, you have to prove yourself, or maybe you are, and questioning yourself. So these aren't great feelings, but those are mine, but I'm sure there's something for you. There's lots of things that show up for different people. So understanding and paying attention to how our bodies feel and how our minds are working allows us to kind of pick apart when those things happen. And then from there, we can kind of reverse engineer that trigger. Consider if there were specific words that made you get into that mindset, or maybe consider your own layers of history. We all have things that we've been through. What is it that might show up for you? And then what kind of story are you attaching to it? So if you are the type of person who's had people in your life, your whole life, say, oh, they're never going to amount to anything. They're trash, or, whatever negative thing you want to choose. The moment that somebody even hints or questions at you or challenges you, even if they're not intending to say that, you might hear that story. And you have to think of your own history in the context of what you're bringing into something and what you might be attaching to it. And it is not done to invalidate your feelings. Your feelings are your feelings, whether they're based in reality or not. They're always right. because they are what you are feeling and we have to deal with them. But to deal with them, we have to be able to do that separation, be able to understand, almost like you would in any kind of computer troubleshooting, what, like a root cause analysis, and figure out, where it's actually coming from. Is it the thing that I think it is, basically? And once you get to that part, the next thing I'm going to say is breathe. I forget to do this one myself all the time. Taking some moments for deep breath, removing yourself from a situation and just centering yourself. There are many ways to do that. I mean, I can't even believe that I'm saying this, because for the longest time, I shit on this as a practice, and I'm sorry. You can make fun of me for it now. I give you permission. But meditation can actually be really great. And I think that meditation gets this, like, I don't know, connotation that it has to be, being completely silent in a room and, keeping your thoughts still. I think that meditation could actually be closing your eyes and listening to classical music. Meditation can be, some people describe it as letting the thoughts come and then, allowing them to leave, giving them space to leave. I think what it means for you is whatever it means. It means the practice of intentionally sitting down with your mind and not allowing it to necessarily only do the thing it finds instinctively. It's to be able to clear it from the clutter and have some measure of control, right? So if you have the crazy thoughts that come in, that's fine, they can come in, but they need to go right back out, right? So some of those things actually help me get my mind around it, because for the longest time, I tried to meditate and it just wasn't possible. Not just because of my ADHD, but also because my mind is always going. Asking it to stop felt like a huge mental block and a huge barrier. And instead, I've learned a couple of ways around that actually really help me. Deep breathing. So just taking some really strong deep breaths. Sometimes crying it out actually really helps too. And when you get to the point where you feel like maybe you're a little more centered, then it's time to check back in and really make sure, first of all, that you are attaching the feelings that you have correctly to the motivations of the person. And if you don't understand fully and you don't know for sure the motivations of the person, then get clarity, ask questions, be curious, not judgmental, and challenge the story that's in your head. If it was back to my analogy before of, this person is asking you questions because they think you're stupid, what else could you ask? Is this something that they have in their everyday vocabulary? Is this the way that they talk to everybody? Is this how they communicate their ideas? Because some people don't necessarily know how to do that, or how to challenge someone while being respectful. And if you can see that the pattern isn't related to you, then it helps you depersonalize. And that's an important part of it. Challenging those stories is really like, am I bringing something from my past, or am I not noticing about something about this person? Now, it doesn't change the impact that it has on you, but it can lessen how grave the situation feels for you and how much importance you place on it. And I think, when we talk about processing or stepping away or going through these things, it's really just to make sure that we're not doing that initial gut reaction, because our gut reaction is based on all those layers of things that have happened to us over time. And we don't want to walk up to someone and say, hi, here's my baggage, here's my things that I've dealt with, consider all of that. That is a lot to consider from just any person from having conversation. So it's lovely when it happens, but it doesn't mean that it can happen all the time. And I think it's an important part of talking about how we can regulate our own emotions, is making sure that we're keeping in check with what reality is and what the story is, and kind of getting to a place between the two. And I think speaking less about conflict and more about how to get yourself back to a baseline, I talked about doing the breathing and meditating. Those are good things when you're in that moment of being triggered. But when you're done processing and you're trying to get yourself back to normal, there's like this in between. Maybe the conflict has just happened and you've addressed something with somebody, or maybe you've decided that it's not worth it, but you're not quite back to zero, right? So like, how do we look at these things that help us feel a measure of control? Because really, when we're dysregulated, that's what's happening. There's an absence of control, and it makes us feel out of our bodies. It makes us feel less in tune. And some of the ways that you can do that are very similar to the other ones. So like I would say listening to music, but in this case here, instead of listening to music with the idea of letting the thoughts pass through you, listen to music that maybe emulates how you're feeling at the time, emulates positivity or hope, or, you know, some people will channel angry music during that time, and get up and move. Maybe get up and dance, maybe go for a walk while you're listening to the music. Allow the sensory input that is required for you to be able to stay connected to your feelings. It's really easy in those moments to jump on a TikTok, to jump on social media and disconnect. But the problem is then you don't feel what's going on in your body. And the tie between your brain and your body is very strong and needs to be respected. It's part of the moving on phase. And in order to get back into regulation, that's what you have to do. You have to bring those two sides together and get them on the same page and be okay. And I don't mean be okay not have any feelings, but be okay with the feelings you have, own them, and be able to present them. And that whole process sometimes can take some time. I think some people do that very quickly. It's like a snap thing for them, and I applaud you. Congratulations. I am not one of those people. I take my time. I take my time because I have made snap decisions in the past that ended up being very hurtful to other people, but also to me. And I think dysregulation might be a great reason for those things to have happened, but it's not an excuse. The dysregulation is within my control. The control piece is, you know, really looking at what it is that is within your control. So I can control how I react, how I show up, what I say, and what I allow myself to get carried away with. I can't control how I feel in the moment because it's a gut reaction. I can't control what the other person has said. I can't control the outcome of me addressing it with them either. I can't mean, just because I say that this is how I feel doesn't mean that that's how they're going to change their behavior in relation to it. So keeping good perspective while you're doing those things is also important, making sure that you understand what is the end result we're looking for. The end result is that I am back in regulation, I am back in a good place, and that I feel like I've done what I need to do in terms of communicating my needs. Whether someone responds to it or not, that is outside of my control. The power for me is in owning how I feel and in expressing how I feel. And realistically, there's a lot we have to let go of. Those are not one of them that I would suggest letting go of. We have the power to take control of those things. I'm reminding myself daily, not always doing the best job of it, but I think if, like everything else, if we work on it together, maybe that's something that we could make progress on and be intentional about. Hope you're having a great week.